Hey there, welcome to the Bible in 5. We are covering the book of Jeremiah this week. Just one video, even though this technically is actually the longest book in the whole of the Old Testament, but we're going to go for it just in one video here. So the prophet Jeremiah, he came kind of at the latter end of Israel's kingdom period. He was one of the prophets that lived and preached and did his work right around the time of the exile of the Israelites to the people of Babylon. And in many ways, the book is broken up into pre-exile and then the event of the exile. So in these early chapters of the book here, long stretch here, chapters 1 through 24, it's just poem after poem after poem of Jeremiah accusing the Israelites of all kinds of things. He accuses them of adultery. He uses the metaphor of adultery or like marital unfaithfulness to describe the people of Israel. As they turn and worship other gods, it's like a wife who's leaving her husband for, another man. And so he develops this very powerful imagery of adultery, of Israel turning to rely on other nations, on Egypt or other nations, instead of trusting in Yahweh. And so this is a long section, and it's just very powerful poetry exposing the idolatry, the hypocrisy among God's people. One of the highlights and very powerful images is a sermon, essentially, an announcement Jeremiah gives in the temple. He goes to the temple in Jerusalem, and there's animals being sacrificed, people there doing their daily worship, and he calls everybody to stop, and he just says, do you realize what's happening here? This is just a sham. This is a show. None of this counts because we have become a nation of injustice, and who's turning after other gods. And so most of this is kind of doom and gloom. He's announcing that Israel needs to turn. But it's also, these announcements are studded with little promises. One of the largest ones that comes in chapter 23. And he says, if we as a nation return to Yahweh, if we turn from our idols and other gods, he says he will send us a king from the line of David. He'll send the Messiah. But essentially, the people are not ready for the Messiah. They're not obedient. And so the promise of the Messiah is kept at bay. That's in chapter 23 here. So what goes on in the next block of the book here, chapters 25 through 29, is Jeremiah has a mission. He sees basically Israel as a lost cause, and so he announces that God's going to bring a nation to judge Israel, the nation of Babylon. And here in chapter 28, it's actually a battle with another prophet of Israel. And this prophet, a guy named Hananiah, is saying that, no, God loves Israel. He's going to bless us no matter what. Even if we're disobedient, he's going to bless us. And Jeremiah says, no. He's going to bring the nation of Babylon, who's going to judge us as his people. Just the fact that he chose Abraham to be a blessing to all of the nations doesn't mean that we're safe and can do whatever we want. He's going to bring judgment even on his own covenant people. And that was a message that Israel did not want to hear. And so he announces that the exile is going to happen. It's going to last 70 years. Babylon's going to come, take everybody out, and haul them away into exile. And right after he finishes that kind of doom and gloom announcement, we have 4 chapters here, chapters 30 through 33, and this is often called the Book of Hope, or the Book of Consolation in Jeremiah. And he basically holds out the idea that after exile, after Babylon comes, he doesn't specify the timing. He just says God will return us back to the land. He will bring the Messiah. He will forgive us and bring restoration and eventually fulfill his promises somehow. It's a very beautiful chapters of hope here after some very dark chapters of judgment in 25 to 29. So the book finishes by kind of rounding out with 2 large blocks of one of narrative, and this is a large section just talking about Jeremiah's life and the horrible events that happened when Babylon came to town and destroyed Jerusalem. And it's kind of like reading a dramatic history or something. You knew that it's coming, and now these chapters just walk you through how the people reject Jeremiah's message, and therefore Babylon comes and takes them out. And so the book ends with a number of chapters here where Jeremiah announces that God is going to bring judgment not just on Israel, but also on Babylon itself, because Babylon was a nation of great wickedness and oppression and injustice. And so even though God uses Babylon to judge Israel, he's also going to bring a judgment on Babylon itself. And so these are collections of poems about God's bringing judgments on all of the nations surrounding Israel, but yet there's still a promise of hope on the other side of judgment. So that's kind of the flow of the book of Jeremiah. The theme should be familiar already from reading Isaiah, and the themes will be similar to the prophets that follow. But essentially, the exile was one of the great turning points of Israel's history, and everything about God's promises hinged on this event and the hope for future restoration and for the Messiah on the other side of the book of exile. So it's a very powerful book, and I think you're going to find a rewarding but challenging read. So we'll see you next time.